right, lesson 3, the approaches. Getting a bit more into the actual content. So hopefully they'll know what the 3 approaches are and why we use them. I love to do a spelling test. I always call it our subject. Please spell our subject right. He says that as he said the name of the subject. I should have said our subject. The boys that I teach currently are not great spellers, so I like to hammer this home. Crossword puzzle. Think, pair, share. So yesterday we used ADHD as a hook. And then here we can say, right, what do we think is causing this problem? The brain, thinking, or the environment? And maybe you can see where we're going with this, with the approaches. Then I like to pose a real world problem. So here's some data, essentially saying, look, men are more violent than women, at least more physically violent, and we end up in prison more. Why is that, right? Is it nature or nurture? Is it how boys are raised, or is it in our biology? And so you can get them to discuss this. And then this leads into the idea of the approaches, right? So depending on where you fall on that debate would probably inspire and influence what approach you might take. So just chalk and talk, explaining the biological, sociocultural, and the cognitive approach. I like to these two back to biological and then sociocultural because they contrast. And then cognitive, it's called the cognitive approach to understanding behavior, but it's really the cognitive approach to understanding cognition and behavior, as I've put in this blue box here. We're not always just studying cognition to see how it influences behavior. Sometimes we're studying cognition for its own sake, since psychology is the study of cognition and behavior. Now, in the workbooks, I've done a very simple activity here. I've tried to find the topics that they would know without the definitions. So, I didn't put things like enculturation in here because they won't know what that is. So I just tried to put the words or terms that they should either be able to guess what they are or already know, and then they try and sort them into the different approaches. 4 minutes might be a bit long, and here are the answers. And then I love studying psychology with the music festival guide Dancing on the Hill. There is so much psychology going on in this video. So trying to get them to think like psychologists, get them to watch the video, what interesting behaviors do they observe, and then think about why they think they might have happened. And usually, the first observation is this guy dancing by himself, and listen to their explanations. Students of mine always say, I think he's taken some substances, and that would be a biological approach. Maybe he's just really self-confident. That would be a cognitive approach, right? How he thinks about himself. Maybe he's an individualist, doesn't really care what other people think of him, and that's linked to individualism, collectivism, right? A cultural approach. I struggle with that third one. If you can come up with a better socio-cultural explanation, go for it. Oh, I just realized maybe he has no friends. Anyway, that could be it. Now, the next observation is everyone joins the dance party and there's this massive bit of conformity. Struggled to come up with a biological one. Mirror neurons I came up with here. Fear of judgment, so people worried about other people judging them, could be the cognitive approach, or a desire to fit in with the group, so normative social influence, so everyone's doing it. Peer pressure could be another one here. And again, just using this to demonstrate this example to demonstrate real world behavior, and we can approach this explanation of this behavior from different angles, from different approaches. Hopefully it makes it a little bit more real. Why do you think psychologists use different approaches? And usually I try to answer these, the first 2 guiding questions for every lesson in the textbook. I'm not sure I did with this one. They will have to come up with their own explanations here, I think. Nothing wrong with that. As always, try to encourage students to do the extension if they're finished early. And homework. See if they can make a real world observation. So something interesting happening out there in the real world, or it could be on TikTok or social media, and come to class, turn into a question. I noticed that, ... and so why do people ...